On the last video, we created a technical drawing using our assembly of our individual components. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to add in a shelf in the middle here and see if I can make that fit quite nicely. Okay, so overall this is 200 wide. It should be 200 wide. Okay, now my shelf is going to have to be a new component, and I'm going to make it so it goes in 5mm on that side and 5mm on that side. So if I take 5mm off there and 5mm off there, it's going to have to be, my shelf is going to have to be 190 instead of 200 long. Okay, that means it will stick in. So it's going to be 190, so it comes halfway into there. So the first thing I'm going to do is to create that part. Okay, so I'm going to go back to modeling, file, new, metric, standard millimeter part, and create. Okay, now I'm going to go right click and new sketch. I'm going to choose the XY plane, and I'm going to draw my rectangle. Click. Not worry too much. I've come horizontally just to make it easier to line up in a minute, I hope. So I'm now going to dimension that. It was going to be a 190. So it's now become very long. And I'm going to just adjust my thickness. Remember, I'm using the middle mouse to scroll in and out there. My thickness is going to be 10. Same material as we've made the other bit. So that's going to be the shelf. I finished the sketch. I'm going to right click and extrude that object, and it's going to go, I'm going to push it that way. And our thickness was 60. Press enter. And then I'm going to go file, save, and this one is going to be shelf. Right, so I've now got top, sides, assembly, drawing, and shelf. I'm going to leave that one not as wood for I'm going to not turn that to wood for a minute. I'm going to just put that in as a grey standard part. Right, so in order for that to slot in, I have to choose my sides, and I have to create a slot. And this is where it could all go wrong. If our assembly is the wrong way around, it could all go wrong. We're going to create a slot in this component here. Right, and I'm going to just test this because I want to make sure it goes the right way. So I'm going to do right click, new sketch. I'm going to choose the side of the object. So you know how normally we use a work plane. I'm going to actually draw on the object this time. I'm going to choose that side. And I'm then going to draw a line in the. No, I'm going to do a rectangle. And I'm going to come down. There's my middle point. So I'm going to draw it slightly above my middle. I don't know if you noticed, when it went green, I clicked on it. And I'm now dragging it up and in. And I'm going to click. And now I've got to dimension my box from there. So I want it to come in from that face by 5. And I want it to be tall enough to accept that other piece of wood, which is 10mm thick. So I click on the bottom line, click on the top line. We go 10. Okay. And I'm going to finish that sketch. So you see that little funny shape there? What I'm going to do with that is I'm going to extrude it. I'm going to push it all the way through that shape, and I'm going to use it to cut out the material. So I'm going to extrude that component all the way through, and I've got my options over here. If you look in this little box, I can choose to, not giving me any previews, let's see if it does it here. I can cut, which is the one I want to do. And what it does is it removes material. Now I don't need it to go that long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, I'm just looking at my extents. instead of distance, I'm going to go to next, and that means it will go to the next face. So now green tick it, and that's given me a slot. Now what I'm going to find out in a second is whether or not I've put the slot on the right side of my assembly, because that will update all of my other bits. So let's have a look on the storage assembly over here. I can see on my preview I've done it the wrong way. Done it on the wrong side. Right, so quite simply what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back in, I'm going to redo that on the other side. Okay, so if you get to this point, you can look at it and go, hang on, that's coming the wrong way. What I'm going to do is come back to my sides. I'm going to take that extrusion, I'm going to delete it and everything that I made it with, and I'm going to do that again on the other side. So let's do that again. Right click, new sketch, I'm going to choose that face, rectangle tool, I'm going to find my middle when it goes green, pop, going to come up by a certain amount. Let's zoom in. That needs to be 5. Press enter. Oh, hang on. Just dimension that one first. 10 and press enter. 5 and press enter. Green tick. Now I'm going to extrude that object, making sure it is cutting and it's going through to the next face. Okay, now this time, so if you remember, last time I did it that side and it turned out to be on the wrong side. This time we should find, boom, there we go, it's now got slots on the inside. Now I'm going to save that one. And I'm going to save that one. And into my assembly now, that's the IAM one, into my assembly, I'm going to put my shelf. And that will then all turn up in this drawing. See how those slots have just popped up then? Okay, so in my assembly IAM, I'm going to right click, place components, I'm going to find my shelf, I'm going to open, right, so you see how it's the wrong way round. I'm going to rotate it around that green arrow, right click, rotate Y axes, cancel to stop bringing any more in. So there's my object, it can move wherever it wants, so I'm going to constrain it. First thing I'm going to constrain is that face against that face. Right click, constraint, that face and that face, but I want it to be a flush. Click. Okay, then I'm going to constrain that bottom face against that top face so that my joint then locks together quite nicely. Okay, so right click, constraints, that face there against that face there. So it can't move anywhere apart from left and right. So hopefully we can now constrain, I think we'll constrain this face here. We're going to want it to be a mate, so they're facing each other. We OK it, and that's now my finished component. So at this point, it's updated my drawing. See how that shelf is now in position? Okay. And what I can do, I can come back to my drawing and I can dimension, and I can show that the dimension is from there to there, or I'm going to cancel that because more importantly I need to know where that slot is, don't I? So I'm going to dimension from there to there, Just plant that outside the drawing. And I'm going to dimension from there to there to show how deep that slot goes. Right, now what I'm not going to bother with is showing how thick that is, because we know. Do we know? No, in fact I am going to do that, because there's nothing on here that's telling us how thick that shelf is. So I'm going to just dimension that shelf, and then we'll know how deep that slot is, won't we? Okay. So that gives us a fully dimensioned technical drawing. There are a couple of bits on there that I could possibly add in, but that'll do for now. Now what I'm going to spend a bit of time doing in a minute is seeing if I can hunt down why one of my dimensions is wrong, because it's only going to be one, but you'll see that's why it's caused some overlaps and some odd dimensions. It'll just be one part somewhere, and then what it'll do is it'll update my drawing and everything will be okay. So right, good luck with that. In a minute I might do a video of how we maybe do an exploded view of that, but for now, good luck.